Foolish, brave, rash, or otherwise, can any of us imagine a circumstance, no matter how dire, under which would willingly dive head first into a pool of boiling water? Who died the worst death in history? Oh, thanks for coming to another storytime with me. I'm so happy you can make it. If we haven't met before, I'm Andrew, your narrator. Also, while you're here, can you like the video? It really helps out with the algorithm, thanks. If you don't like the video, I'll tell all your friends and family that you're still a virgin. Anyways, let's get into the story. Last thing actually, this video can be disturbing to some viewers, don't say I didn't warn you. The guy who invented the brazen bull. Edit. I'm being told he was pulled out and thrown off a cliff before dying in the bull. PSSH, that was easy mode then. Hiroshi Uchi. Japanese worker that got a super deadly radiation dose when material he worked with got critical. He suffered for 3 months while they didn't let him die. Takuya Nagaya, 23, from Japan, started to slither on the floor and talk about becoming a snake. His mother took this to mean that he had been possessed by a snake demon and called for her husband, 53-year-old Katsumi Nagaya, who spent the next 2 days physically beating his son in an attempt to exorcise the demon. This killed Takuya. The explorer David Douglas, discoverer of the Douglas fir. He fell, was allegedly pushed into a cow trap, which is basically a big pit full of spikes. Then a cow fell in on top of him. Impaled by spikes while simultaneously being crushed by an angry flailing cow. Not much fun. The victims of Jeffrey Dahmer. Lindsay was a heterosexual. He was lured to Dahmer's apartment, where he was drugged and endured muriatic acid being poured into his skull through a cavity which Dahmer had drilled. According to Dahmer, Lindsay awoke after this experiment, which Dahmer had conceived in the hope of inducing a permanent unresistant submissive state, saying, "I have a headache. What time is it?" Not especially painful because of how fast it happened, but the explosive decompression experienced by diver Truls Hellevik. His body was later determined to have completely exploded. All of his thoracic and abdominal organs, and even his thoracic spine, were ejected, as were all of his limbs. Simultaneously, his remains were expelled through the narrow trunk opening left by the jammed chamber door, less than 60 centimeters (24 in diameter. Fragments of his body were found scattered about the rig. One part was even found lying on the rig's derrick, 10 meters (30 feet) directly above the chambers. I was in Seattle when this carny at a fair got killed. He made it to the wiki list of horrible deaths once. He was servicing the roller coaster while it was active and full of passengers. As the coaster was going through the loop, he was standing on the outside looking at the mechanisms. The wind from the ride whipped his hair into the air, wrapped around the wheel and took him off his feet. As he was dragged into the air by the speeding coaster, his throat was gutted on the track hardware, but just as the coaster reached the apex of the loop, the inertia created was enough to tear his scalp off, freeing him from the coaster. Throat cut and head scalped, the carny flew through the air and arterial sprayed a classroom full of little children on a field trip. Waiting in line for another ride before coming to rest perpendicularly on a section of steel railing which folded him in half like a beach towel, finally killing him right in front of all the children. I haven't actually watched it myself, but there's a video floating around Leveliak, where some cartel members kill another member of a different cartel in the following way. 1. They chop off his limbs one at a time. 2. They then get some jump cables, attach them to a car and the other end to the victim's eyes and fire it up. He's alive when they start, and the screams are just too much to handle. They then put the severed head on display at a local market, and people start to notice the head just sitting around there among the vegetables. I've seen a lot of stuff, but this one just seems nope. Kato the Younger attempted to commit suicide by disembowelment. He passed out from the pain, and his lieutenants had a surgeon sew him back up. Upon coming to, Kato tore open the freshly sewn cut and pulled his intestines out with his bare hands. Edit. It should be noted this story come from Plutarch, who was known to play a little fast and loose with details. The story of Edward II is probably false, but always creeps me out. Edward's wife reportedly put a funnel into his anus and poured burning coals into his body, burning him to death from the inside out. Also for a bonus, the funniest death in history, Chrysippus. He was a philosopher who has partying hard one night and decided to feed his donkey some figs. Upon seeing his donkey eat the figs, he apparently yelled, "Give that donkey some wine to help his meal," and got his donkey drunk, which he found so insanely funny he laughed until he died of asphyxiation. Disclaimer: please take these stories as a fun and not actual historical fact. Woman sat in the bath and dropped a bar heater in to electrocute herself. Current wasn't enough to kill her, but enough to have her seize in place. The bath then heated up till boiling point over the next 12 hours. When only a little bit of water was left, the heater shorted. Mandatory edit. Some facts have been changed in this story to protect the persons affected. The boiling point, exact boiling point, 100 C, may not have been reached. This assumption is made on amount of water that was lost during this relatively short period of time. This was not a recent incident. Wall socket heaters here are capable of 2,400 watts. Exact cause of death is still unknown. This is a true story as it is presented, there will be no source. Balthasar Gerards, executed for the assassination of William I of Orange. The torturing included being whipped with a lash. After this, his wounds were smeared with honey so a goat could lick it up. The goat didn't cooperate though. He was forced to sleep with his hands and feet bound together. A weight of 300 pounds, 150 kilograms, was attached to his big toes for half an hour. He was fitted with well-oiled two small shoes made of uncured dogskin. He was put in front of a fire so the heat contracted the shoes and crushed his feet. The remainder half-burned skin was torn off. His armpits were branded. He was dressed in a shirt soaked in alcohol and they poured burning bacon fat over him. If this was not enough, they placed nails between the flesh and nails of hands and feet. The execution was supposedly this. The magistrates decreed that the right hand of Gerard should be burned off with a red-hot iron, that his flesh should be torn from his bones with pincers in 6 different places, that he should be quartered and disemboweled alive, his heart torn from his bosom and flung in his face, and that, finally, his head should be taken off. People who were sentenced to the boats. The intended victim was stripped naked and then firmly fastened within the interior space of 2 narrow rowing boats, or hollowed-out tree trunks, joined together one on top of the other with the head, hands and feet protruding. The condemned was forced to ingest milk and honey, to the point of developing a severe bowel movement and diarrhea, and more honey would be poured on him to attract insects, with special attention devoted to the eyes, ears, mouth, genitals, and anus. In some cases, the executioner would mix milk and honey and pour that mixture all over the victim. He would then be left to float on a stagnant pond or be exposed to the sun. The defenseless individual's feces accumulated within the container, attracting more insects which would eat and breed within his exposed flesh, which, pursuant to interruption of the blood supply by burrowing insects, became increasingly gangrenous. The individual would lie naked, covered from head to toe in milk, honey, and their own feces. The feeding would be repeated each day in some cases to prolong the torture, so that fatal dehydration or starvation did not occur. Death, when it eventually occurred, was probably due to a combination of dehydration, starvation and septic shock. Delirium would typically set in after a few days. So, yeah. That crap. On 20 July 1981, 24-year-old David Allen Kerwin from La Canada, California, was driving through Yellowstone's Fountain Paint Pot thermal area with his friend Ronald Ratliff and Ratliff's dog Moosey. At about 1 p.m., they parked their truck to get out and take a closer look at the hot springs. Moosey escaped from the truck, ran towards nearby Celestine Pool, a thermal spring whose water temperature has been measured at over 200 degrees, jumped in, and began yelping. Kerwin and Ratliff rushed over to the pool to aid the terrified dog, and Kerwin's attitude indicated he was about to go into the spring after it. According to bystanders, several people tried to warn Kerwin off by yelling at him not to jump in, but he shouted, "Like hell I won't," back at them. Took 2 steps into the pool and then dove head first into the boiling spring. Kerwin swam out to the dog and attempted to take it to shore. He then disappeared underwater, let go of the dog, and tried to climb out of the pool. Ratliff helped pull Kerwin out of the hot spring, resulting in second-degree burns to his own feet, and another visitor led Kerwin to the sidewalk as he reportedly muttered, That was stupid. How bad am I? That was a stupid thing I did. Kerwin was indeed in very bad shape. He was blind, and when another park visitor tried to remove one of his shoes, his skin, which was already peeling everywhere, came off with it. He sustained third-degree burns to 100% of his body, including his head, and died the following morning at a Salt Lake City hospital. Moosey did not survive, either. Perhaps David Allen Kerwin didn't realize just how hot the thermal springs really are. Perhaps he didn't consider the deadly effect submersion in water of such temperatures would have on him. Or perhaps blind emotion drove him to act without taking even the briefest moment to consider his own safety. Foolish, brave, rash, or otherwise, can any of us imagine a circumstance, no matter how dire, under which would willingly dive head first into a pool of boiling water? Thanks for watching. What did you think of the story time? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked the video, smash that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any more story times.